Tales of Herding Gods, Episode 46. Interpreting Classic Original Works and Savoring the Fate of Humanity. Hello everyone, I am Qinmu, your host from the Chinese animation section. Picking up from last time, Qinmu, having learned the national preceptors. 3 self-created techniques descended the mountain to challenge Daoist Linuan. While Qinmu was at the 5 Fiend realm, Daoist Linuan was at the 6 River realm, though he had sealed his 6 River divine treasury for the fight. Qinmu took a bamboo staff from his back, then drew a pig slaughtering knife, followed by an iron hammer, and finally the Shao precious sword. He then asked, "Does Daoist use weapons?" Before Daoist Linuan could speak, Yang Zi suddenly interjected, "No weapons, only Daoist arts, divine abilities, and close combat techniques." Puzzled, Daoist Linuan put down his whisk and said, "Since Brother Qin insists, I will not use weapons." However, Yang Zi secretly breathed a sigh of relief as his gaze drifted away from the Shao precious sword. It resembled the accessory of a first-rank official, and he knew that if it were real, Daoist Linuan's whisk would surely snap upon contact. Qin. Mu smiled, and suddenly, a second layer of pupils appeared in his eyes as he fully activated the divine firmament heavenly eye and the clear firmament heavenly eye. The ground beneath his feet sank, shattering the blue stone slabs, and the resulting broken stones were shaken into suspension, levitating in the air. Qinmu then unleashed a punch. The hundreds of levitating bluestone fragments were further pulverized by the shockwave, and these countless fragments followed his fist, hurtling towards Daoist Linuan. The force of his punch merged with the debris, transforming into a sand dragon that surged directly at his opponent. Simultaneously, his steps became ghost-like and swift, allowing him to close the distance rapidly, following right behind his own fist force to reach Daoist Linuan's side. Daoist Linuan's heart jolted. Suddenly, one of his pupils turned white and the other black. He raised his hand, bringing forth the sky-overturning seal. His palm, like jade, resembled an ancient imperial seal and radiated an archaic and profound aura. As he met the sand dragon, both combatants erupted with their full might. A dull, astonishing roar echoed. The dragon-headed, kiln-bodied beast guarding the mountain gate heard the resounding clash and raised its head in confusion, looking around. Gazing at this half-dragon, half-kiln beast, a name that is a bit long, we will refer to it as the Dragon Kiln from now on. The grand manifestation of 9 dragons riding wind that Qinmu had unleashed contained 45 different kinds of dragon essence. However, Daoist Linuan's sky-overturning seal surprisingly formed an impenetrable barrier, blocking all 45 kinds of dragon essence right between their 2 palms. Just then, countless stone fragments flew past Daoist Linuan, causing his hair to stand on end. His yin-yang Dao eyes perceived that connecting these tiny stones were fine, incomparably thin chains of essence key silk. Each thread of essence key silk was, in fact, a rotating fine sword. These fine swords were formed from Qinmu's essence key. The sword qi, originally hidden within the stones, was now detaching from them. He executed the outstanding wheel seal. Daoist Linuan's 10 fingers flew, one palm facing up and the other down. With a hum, 2 wheels appeared, one above his head and one below his feet. These wheels, formed from essence key, had a peculiar structure resembling an array but with the top and bottom reversed. The moment these opposing arrays enveloped him, the tiny fragments around him suddenly turned to dust. The sword key that Qinmu had hidden among the countless stones immediately converged, forming an azure dragon of essence key. The countless strands of sword qi made up the body of the azure dragon, which stirred vigorously. This was the entwining arrow technique. However, Qinmu had not followed the Yangkang National Preceptor's teaching of turning the entwining arrow technique into a sword array. Instead, he had let the countless entwining sword chi form an azure dragon. From between the two wheels rotating in opposite directions, countless fine swords immediately emerged, forming a sword curtain that collided with the stirring azure dragon. Sword chi shattered and flew everywhere. The two youths were not only clashing with sword chi, but also with their raw cultivation power. Daoist Linuan immediately felt the pressure, as Qinmu's essence qi was actually suppressing his own. The Daoist sect's primordial grand profound art was renowned for its abundant cultivation power. To put it simply, among all the cultivation methods of the sects in the world today, none could compare to the primordial grand profound art when, at the same realm. Even the Tathagata Grand Attainment Scripture, also known for its formidable cultivation power, fell short. Yet now, he found that Qinmu's cultivation power surpassed his own. Daoist Linuan felt that his outstanding wheel seal could be broken at any moment, so he immediately changed his move. Although he had no whisk in his hand, as he opened his palm, countless dust threads flew out. These were threads of essence. Qi, but under his control, they acted like essence qi swords, striking outwards from within the wheel in an attempt to sever the azure dragon. At this moment, Qinmu, who was outside the wheel, had already arrived. He reached out and grabbed the countless clouds of smoke and powdered fragments. As his essence qi erupted, the dust and debris gathered in his hand, forming a long spear. With a whoosh, he thrust it into the rotating wheel. Daoist Linuan used his other hand, which was still forming the sky-overturning seal, to block the great spear. Immediately, a series of incessant bang, bang, bang sounds echoed. Qinmu then used his hand as a blade, fighting continuously as countless blades of wind and rain slashed at the wheel, causing the outstanding wheel seal to collapse instantly. Daoist Linuan knew this was bad. The next moment, he was struck by several blades in the chest. Blood appeared on his torso as his body was sent flying backwards. Despite using the force of the blow to fly backward, he remained calm and composed. He sent threads of his essence, qi drilling into the azure dragon, causing them to fly out in all directions and finally destroying the great beast. After the azure dragon collapsed, it immediately transformed back into hundreds of fine swords made of essence qi. In the blink of an eye, the giant dragon reformed and with a thunderous roar plunged back into the earth. Linuan Daoist, inwardly, cursed, "This is bad!" as he pressed his palm downwards. Countless Daoist chess pieces plunged into the ground, and the earth itself lifted his body. Using the Daoist chess pieces as stepping stones, he soared through the air like a blur. Beneath him, an azure dragon burst forth from underground, plunged back down with a roar, then burst out again, repeating the cycle. Each time the azure dragon emerged from the ground, Qinmu landed precisely on its head, using it to chase after Linuan Daoist with great speed. Qinmu flicked his fingers repeatedly, unleashing finger-flick thunder. Amidst the thunderous roars, a chilling, mournful sound erupted. Linuan Daoist's expression changed drastically. "Damn, he seized the initiative," he thought. "I can only use the Daoist sect's array foot sword art now." Danyangzi stood up, his eyes fixed on the battle. Meanwhile, the dragon Kalin at the mountain gate, having lost interest, had fallen back into a deep slumber. Suddenly, the Daoist chess pieces in Linuan Daoist's hand began to change. Some turned black while others turned white, spreading out in the air. The black and white flowed slowly, like a Taiji diagram unfurling in the sky. The Daoist sect's array foot sword art, the first stance of the Dao sword, 14 chapters. A single point connects, two poles move, yin and yang cycle within. As Linuan Daoist's arm trembled, the black and white diagram pressed downwards. Beneath it, Qinmu's heart stirred with the principles of the I Ching. The sword art pressing down from above was no longer a mortal technique. Yin and yang, the two poles, intertwined with each other. He flicked his fingertips, unleashing finger-flick thunder, but when the move touched the black and white Taiji diagram, it was utterly useless, like a clay ox entering the sea, not even stirring a ripple. With a whoosh, the azure dragon beneath Qinmu's feet soared into the sky and suddenly disintegrated. The countless sword lights collapsed and converged, falling into his hand and transforming into a long sword. With a solemn expression, Qinmu held his sword and met the descending Taiji diagram. He unleashed the sword art taught to him by the village chief. Sword tread, mountains and rivers. Beneath his sword, the light flickered as the 14 basic sword forms transformed in his hands in an instant, creating a magnificent landscape of rivers and mountains in the sky. The Daoist sect's Dao sword. 14 chapters was not a mortal sword art, but neither was the technique taught to him by the village chief. This was a sword art that punishes gods. The person who wields this sword must have a heart empty of gods, demons, and Buddhas, harboring immense disrespect for them. They must possess the heart to slay gods. Danyangzi's eyelids twitched, and he suddenly shot to his feet. At the same time, the dragon, Qilin at the mountain gate, awoke from its slumber, abruptly raising its head. The two sword arts clashed in the air, creating a dazzling brilliance. The black and white Taiji diagram disintegrated within the slowly unfolding landscape of rivers and mountains. In an instant, Lin Xuandaozi was struck by dozens of sword lights, his body covered in bloodstains. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. A flaw. Qinmu noticed his gaze and realized the young man was looking at his left shoulder. This spot was precisely the weakness of the hegemon Body 3 elixir lords. Qinmu immediately raised his hand and formed a seal, using the demon god's false power seal to block his left shoulder. At the same time, his other hand, holding the sword, surged with light as he stabbed towards Lin Xuandaozi. Lin Xuandaozi's sword pierced through Qinmu's palm and simultaneously struck his left shoulder. The blow was blocked by the brocade robe Qinmu wore, preventing it from piercing his flesh, but the sword aura penetrated, making Qinmu's scalp tingle. Simultaneously, Lin Xuandaozi's body shook violently and swayed incessantly as dozens of blood holes instantly appeared on his body before he collapsed to the ground. Qinmu dispersed the sharp sword formed by his vital qi. "My apologies for the offense," he said. "Daoist, you've conceded." Lin Xuandaozi struggled to his feet, blood still flowing from the holes in his body. Danyangzi rushed forward with a cry, about to apply medicine, but Lin Xuandaozi raised a hand to stop him. He straightened his robes, bowed, and said, "Thank you for the guidance." Only after speaking did he take a medicinal pill. Danyangzi then quickly applied wound medicine to him. After he was treated, the old and young Daoists stood up and bowed to Qinmu, who bowed in return. He watched as the two Daoists put on their bamboo-woven conical hats and turned to leave. After they departed, Qinmu's expression changed. He clutched his left hand, gasping repeatedly. "It hurts. It's killing me." The wounds on his left hand and shoulder were excruciating. Lin Xuandaozi's sword had injured his bones. As he was about to go up the mountain, his steps stumbled. His vital qi was severely depleted as using sword-tread mountains and rivers had consumed an immense amount, leaving him weak. He quickly raised his hand and leaned on the dragon Qilin chained beside him. Qinmu had passed the mountain gate several times, but had never noticed this mythical beast, always assuming it was a stone sculpture. He hadn't expected to feel something soft beneath his hand, and was startled. The dragon Qilin glanced at him, then extended its tongue and licked his shoulder. Gradually, Qinmu's shoulder grew cool, and the pain slowly disappeared. He quickly pulled open his collar to look, and saw that the small sword wounds on his shoulder, caused by the sword aura, were slowly shrinking. All 10 or so of the wounds were healing. Astonished, Qinmu wondered, "Is this dragon saliva or Qilin saliva?" No matter which it was an excellent medicinal material. He quickly raised his wounded palm, and the beast licked it again. Qinmu watched as the flesh and blood in his palm slowly grew back. The flesh at the sword wound was like sprouting tender leaves, quickly healing the injury. The damage to his bones also seemed to have healed, as his skin rapidly repaired itself. "Senior brother, do you like sour things?" Qinmu squatted down, pulled a fish-shaped bottle from his embrace, and placed it under the beast's mouth. "Little fellow, it's the really sour kind, the kind that makes your teeth fall out from sourness. Don't you like it? Then how about yellow? Plums? They're also especially sour. Think about it. You'd be so puckered you'd drool, and you still wouldn't like it. How about I treat you to some lemons?" The exotic beast glared at him, remaining silent and ignoring his offers. It sat there, motionless, and no dragon's drool flowed from its mouth. "So, what do you like to eat?" Qinmu asked. "There's a great green ox on the mountain. I've had my eye on it for a long time," the dragon Qilin suddenly spoke, still staring straight ahead, motionless. "Can you get it for me?" Qinmu patted his chest and laughed. "A righteous brother like you is someone I'm definitely befriending. Don't worry, I'll get it for you very soon." The dragon Qilin was overjoyed. Drool seemed about to trickle from the corner of its mouth, but then it slurped it back in. Qinmu had no choice but to return up the mountain, thinking, "It seems I can only coax out the dragon's drool by getting that great green ox for him. This green ox, I think I've seen it somewhere before. It seemed to be grazing in front of a courtyard. I'll ask Linger. She's been wandering around this mountain, so she's more familiar with it than I am." He walked up the mountain. At this time, in the princely quarters, divine arts quarters, and imperial scion's garden, people were gradually waking up. They headed down the mountain in groups of 3 to 5, walking past Qinmu. When they reached the foot of the mountain, they heard an uproar from ahead and quickly rushed forward. Someone shouted, "The 2 Daoists are gone!" The second prince, Ling Yushu, was taken aback. He immediately entered the crowd and looked ahead. Sure enough, Daoist Danyang and Daoist Linuan had vanished without a trace. Could it be that they retreated in the face of difficulty? Someone stammered. Ling Yushu frowned and sneered. "Daoist Danyang and Daoist Linuan came here to challenge us at the gate and humiliate us. How could they possibly retreat in the face of difficulty and admit defeat? Clearly, someone defeated Daoist Linuan, and they left after conceding. The one who defeated Daoist Linuan is among us, having descended the mountain 1 step ahead." Ling Yushu's eyes flickered as he scanned the crowd. Who could it be? Meanwhile, Daoist Danyang and Daoist Linuan walked unhurriedly out of the capital, arriving 100 li or so outside the suburbs. There, by the surging Tu River, they saw an old and a young monk stepping down upon its surface. Daoist Danyang and Daoist Linuan stopped by the riverbank and bowed to them, calling, "How, senior brothers!" The 2 monks also stopped on the river surface, clasped their palms, and returned the greeting. "Senior brothers!" The old monk, with white eyebrows hanging low, asked, "Senior brothers, you've returned from Tai Academy. Have 3 full days passed?" Daoist Danyang shook his head. "Not yet 3 days." The old monk's brows twitched, clearly agitated. Tai Academy actually possesses such formidable opponents? I had only intended for the Buddhist son to go for a visit. I wonder how his experience will be. Daoist Danyang clasped his hands and bid farewell. The old monk also clasped his hands, and they departed in their separate directions. After Daoist Danyang and Daoist Linuan left Tai Academy, everyone from the libationer above to the princely scions below let out a long sigh of relief. But as for who exactly defeated Daoist Linuan, no one could say for sure, and everyone speculated with all sorts of theories. Not long after, an uproar suddenly came from the foot of the mountain. Someone shouted, pointing, "An old monk has come down the mountain, bringing a young monk with him. They sat down in front of the mountain gate. The princely scions looked at each other in dismay. Shen Wanyun's eyes flickered. The experts from the Daoist gate had just left, and now the monks from Great Thunderclap Temple have arrived. Among these two monks, the younger one is likely the Buddhist son of Great Thunderclap Temple. I didn't get to cross hands with Daoist Lin Xuan, so I must definitely have a match with the Buddhist son. Junior brothers and sisters, I need half a day to rest and recuperate. The princely scions all bid farewell and left. Shen Wanyun lay down with his clothes on and before long fell into a deep sleep. The next day, he arrived at the foot of the mountain and learned that the Buddhist son of Great Thunderclap Temple had already defeated many experts from Tai Academy. This Buddhist son possessed a Tathagata's golden body, protected by Vajra body protection, and had diligently cultivated the Buddhist combat victory art. When he activated his techniques, his body would swell several times in size, granting him boundless strength. Moreover, his Buddha light flowed around him, at times transforming into a great bell and at others into a Buddha pagoda to suppress his foes. With a raised hand, he would unleash a golden wave to collect people into his alms bowl, and with a flick of his wrist, a Mount Sumeru would descend to suppress them. Shen Wanyun stepped forward to battle. After fighting for over 10 rounds, he used his drilling sword style to break through the Buddhist son's Vajra body protection, causing the Buddhist son, Fo Xin, to be injured. However, Fo Xin's strength was formidable, and he ultimately defeated Shen Wanyun. Many princely scions from the Divine Arts Quarters and Imperial Scions Garden couldn't help but look at him with new eyes. Most of the princely scions from the princely quarters had simpler martial arts and lower cultivation, yet Shen Wanyun was actually able to exchange more than 10 blows with the Buddhist son of Great Thunderclap Temple before being defeated. This battle record would qualify him as a top-tier expert, capable of ranking within the top 10 even among the Divine Arts Quarters and Imperial Scions Garden. Immediately, some princes and princesses from the Imperial Scions Garden stepped forward, showing their intention to win him over. Shen Wanyun thought, "It seems my battle record isn't bad, otherwise no one would try to recruit me. I wonder how Junior brother Qin fared in his fight with this monk. How many moves could he withstand against the Buddhist son?" Qin Mu, however, didn't care about these things. Hu Linger was leading him towards the back mountain. "Young master, I've seen that green ox you mentioned a few times. There's a vegetable garden on the back mountain." Qin Mu was surprised. An ox in a vegetable garden is most likely a wild ox. Otherwise, who would keep it in a vegetable garden to eat vegetables? "That's true," Hu Linger replied. "Young master, why would that dragon killin in front of the mountain gate want to eat this ox?" Qin Mu said he didn't know. "I'm guessing this ox might have offended the dragon Keelan. Perhaps it was annoyed seeing it constantly pilfering vegetables from the garden." Hu Linger led him to the back mountain. Fewer people came here. Few princely scions ever visited. This back mountain, there were several courtyards where a few imperial students who preferred the shade were said to reside. Besides their courtyards, there was also the residence of Old Man Shushan. Several vegetable plots had been opened up on the back mountain. Qin Mu and Hu Linger walked down a winding path. After a while, they saw a tile-red courtyard. In front and to the left of the courtyard, a flat area of about 5 or 6 mu had been cleared, fenced off, and planted with many vegetables. At that moment, a green ox was standing in the vegetable patch, eating the vegetables and leisurely flicking its tail to ward off mosquitoes. Qin Mu glanced at it and shivered. Okay, that's all the content for this video. If you enjoyed it, please don't hesitate to like, share, and subscribe. After all, your support is my motivation to keep creating content. I'm Qin Mu. See you in the next video.